Hey everybody, this is my 2000 Nissan Maxima, one of the manuals, one of the rare ones left out there. Today I've got to replace the battery because I've been having electrical issues with it starting and shutting off on me intermittently on the freeway. But first, I figured I'd give you guys an explanation of what exactly is happening. Alright, so I'm going to explain exactly what DC electricity is, how it works in a car, and the issue that I'm having with my vehicle, plus the solution I came up with to solve the problem. So here in this circuit, we have a source, which is 12-volt battery, and this is what's supplying power to our entire circuit. Electricity in DC always flows from positive to negative with a grounded wire, so that way in case if there's ever a short, the electricity will flow to the ground and not cause damage to the components. So if we were to populate this circuit as such with, a headlights, starter, fuel pump, an audio system, with the ignition switch being the one that controls it all, you would see that when this ignition switch engages, everything becomes energized. Now, the type of consumption that these components use vary, and the names that I've given them are headlights use low voltage, but it's a constant voltage when they're running. The stereo deck, same thing, low voltage, but it uses a constant flow of electricity to stay running. The amplifier has dependent constant voltage, which only relies on when the stereo deck sends signals out to it to be pumped out to the subwoofer, which is always varying. You never know what kind of signals you're going to be getting out of the subwoofer. The starter has high initial voltage because it needs all that extra cranking amps in order to turn the flywheel and make the engine start. And then the fuel pump needs to prime the engine prior to the starter going off, while at the same time funneling a constant amount of fuel to the fuel injectors to keep the engine running. The problem here is that when the subwoofer is booming, constantly, it's picking up a lot more power from the battery. And with that, in turn, is causing more excessive damage to the battery, and it's taking away power from other components on the circuit that need the proper voltage in order to run. The solution that I came up with was to change the battery to a much stronger battery and to put inline a capacitor from the stereo, from the battery to the amplifier in order to have a reservoir of power for when the subwoofer needs to pull energy. Now that that's all in order, let's take a look at exactly what I'm upgrading to. So I have the XS Power D3400R battery. This thing has about 1200 cranking amps. I also got the tall brass post for it. So this should solve the starting problem. And then to solve the sound system problem, for the capacitor, I went with the Stinger 5 farad capacitor. So let's go ahead and take a look at exactly where everything is at. So the battery is located here. I have a positive, negative. That wire is what runs back to the amplifier in the trunk, which then hooks up to the subwoofer. Let's go ahead and look at that. It's right back here. So we have our subwoofer, amplifier. The capacitor is going to go in line with that red wire, so that way it can have enough power reserved for the subwoofer whenever this thing takes a big load. So let's go ahead and get these unpacked and see exactly what's inside. Alright, so everything's out of their boxes. I did read the instructions for the battery and the capacitor, and it seems that they both need to be pre-charged before they get installed. So I will probably hook this up to the battery that's already in the engine bay and then have the alternator charge it. For the capacitor, I'll probably take the amplifier out of the circuit and then just have the positive and negative go straight to the terminals to charge this, but I have to install this charging card that came with it, so that way it reduces the amount of voltage that goes in to make sure that it doesn't arc. The other thing that I also got was heat shielding, because this is an AGM battery, and AGM batteries are really sensitive to heat, and since it's really hot in the engine bay, I figured you know, if I'm gonna spend the money for a battery like this, I may as well spend a little bit extra to get some protection for it. Also got some battery washers for the posts, so that way I don't get any corrosion on it. And yeah, so let's get these all charged up. Alright, so battery's been charged, hooked it up to the battery that's in there, the alternator took care of it, it's all charged up. I did check it, it is charged with about 13 volts, so it should be good. I could not figure out exactly how to charge this using the charging card that came with it. It was just too much work, and so I decided to just plug it in anyway. So you have your main power here coming from your positive terminal on the battery, and that hooks up to one of the positive terminals on the capacitor. Then you need to jumper another wire from the other positive terminal back to the amplifier so it still gets power. Same thing, you take your grounding wire that's hooked up to the chassis and you hook it up to the negative terminal on the capacitor, and you take the other negative terminal and you have to take another jumper wire and send it back to the amplifier on the negative terminal, so that way this thing can still get power. You won't read voltage, and your amplifier will not be controlled by the deck unless if you splice two wires and send it back with the remote wire that your deck needs in order to control these two things. So I did that, and all that's left is to install the battery into its place. And so all it is two nuts, one here to take this bracket off that holds the battery in place. You take your negative terminal off, your positive terminal, and then this comes right out, and in goes that one. Alright, new battery's in, old battery's out. All that's left is some good old battery protector. I'll prevent that corrosion. Give it a couple sprays. Now, let's give it a shot. See how it goes. Alright, let's see. How's it looking? It's looking good, sounding good. Great. Still got power on the capacitor and amplifier, that's good. Deck seems to be in order. Yeah, everything looks good. Well, thanks for stopping by. You know, if anything was helpful, let me know down below in the comments. And chances are the next video I'll probably be working on my suspension system. See how that goes. I want to get some coilovers for my car. I already have the strut bar right there in that box up against the door. So we'll see when I get to that. But yeah, I mean, thanks for watching. Later.